Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
As I was walking into the studio today, I was dragging my rolling bag behind me. It's got all my notes, my laptop, my lunch, and I hit that little concrete ramp at the corner of the sidewalk, the curb cut.
Mm-hmm.
And it struck me, originally back in the 70s, activists fought for those ramps, specifically for people using wheelchairs. It was a huge civil rights battle. But today,
Everyone uses them.
everyone, strollers, delivery guys with hand trucks, travelers like me with rolling luggage, we all use them without even thinking about it.
It is the classic example of what we call universal design. When you solve for the margins, for the people who actually need the accommodation,
Mm-hmm.
you almost always end up making the center better for everyone else.
Exactly. And the reason I'm bringing this up isn't to talk about, concrete or city planning.
Yeah.
It's because we are looking at a massive stack of documents today that essentially mandate that same logic for the digital world.
That's right.
We are doing a deep dive into the April 2024 update to the ADA Title II rules. And looking at this, it seems like the Department of Justice just handed down one of the most significant shifts in how local governments and schools have to operate in maybe decades.
Oh, it's certainly the biggest shift for the digital age. This isn't just a memo suggesting websites should be easier to read. It's not, it would be nice if your colors had good contrast.
Right.
This is the federal government saying, look, the internet is now the town square. And if you lock the doors to the digital town square, you are violating civil rights.
And the stakes here are incredibly high. We're not just talking about fixing a broken link on a homepage or making a font a little bigger. We're talking about federal mandates, hard deadlines, and, if I'm reading these legal briefs correctly, potentially huge financial liabilities for schools and cities that don't get this right.
That's it. The era of we're working on it or we'll get to accessibility when we have the budget is officially over. The clock is ticking. And the alarm is set for 2026.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We need to get past the initial panic, because I know a lot of administrators are probably panic scrolling right now, and figure out the how. We need to decode the new deadlines, understand this vendor conundrum that keeps popping up, and look at why relying on those little automated checker buttons might actually be walking you right into a lawsuit.
It's a mix of legal compliance, technical standards, and honestly, a total overhaul of organizational culture. It's going to be a fascinating unpack.
Okay, so let's start with the hard facts. The law of the land. The DOJ dropped this rule in April 2024. What is the actual standard they set? Because for years, the ADA just said don't discriminate, but it was so vague.
Exactly. It was ambiguous, which led to a lot of confusion and, frankly, a lot of lawsuits that felt kind of arbitrary. Now, that ambiguity is gone. The DOJ has adopted a very specific technical standard, WCAG 2.1 level AA.
Okay, let's unpack that alphabet soup. WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines.
Right. It's the international gold standard for this stuff. And level AA is sort of the sweet spot. It's not the bare minimum that's level A, but it's not the super strict, military grade standard, which is level AAA. Level AA is the global standard for usability.
Okay, but for the non-coders listening, the superintendents, the city clerks, the communications directors, what does WCAG 2.1 AA actually feel like to a user?
The best way to think about it is the acronym POUR, POUR. Your content has to be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust.
Let's break those down. Perceivable sounds simple, but I bet it's complicated.
Perceivable just means, can I get the information even if my senses are different? So, for example, if I'm blind, is there text that a screen reader can turn into speech? But it also means if I have low vision, is the color contrast sharp enough?
Ah, okay.
You know how modern design loves that light gray text on a white background because it looks sleek?
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
Under these rules, that's a violation. It's not perceivable.
Okay, so no invisible text. What about operable?
This is a big one. Operable means, can I navigate this without a mouse? A lot of people with motor disabilities rely entirely on a keyboard. They use the tab key to jump from link to link.
Right.
If your website has one of those fancy drop-down menus that only opens when you hover a mouse over it, that site is not operable. You've locked the door.
Which, honestly, is a test most websites would fail immediately.
Yeah.
I see those hover menus everywhere.
They are everywhere.
Yeah.
And they are a major liability now. Then you have understandable, does the site behave in a predictable way?
Yeah.
And finally, robust, which is really about, does it work with assistive technologies?
And looking at the scope here, this isn't just the main website, right? It's not just www.schooldistrict.edu.
No, and that's where the panic really starts to set in for a lot of leaders. The rule covers the entirety of the web and mobile app program.
The entirety.
Everything. Your official social media posts, the internal HR portal where employees check their pay stubs, the third-party app parents use to pay for lunch. It even covers the PDF worksheet a history teacher uploads to Google Classroom on a Tuesday night.
That is a massive scope creep. You're basically turning every single employee from the cafeteria manager to the AP English teacher into a compliance officer.
You have to. If you just leave this to the IT department to fix after the fact, you will fail. There just isn't enough time in the day.
So let's talk timeline. The notes mention a split based on population size.
Yeah, the DOJ tried to be fair to smaller towns and rural districts. If you are a public entity with a population of 50,000 or more, your deadline is April 24, 2026.
2 years.
Right. If you're smaller, less than 50,000, you get an extra year until April 26, 2027.
Now, I need you to clarify something because this tripped me up. For a school district, how do you count population? It's not student enrollment, is it?
No, and this is so critical. You would think it's enrollment, but it's not. For a school district, the population is determined by the Census Bureau data for the jurisdiction you serve.
So not the kids in the seats, the people in the houses.
Correct. So let's say you run a small school district. You've only got 8,000 students. You're thinking, great, I'm small, I have until 2027. But your district boundaries overlap with a city that has 60,000 residents.
You're in the 2026 bucket.
You're in the 2026 bucket. You cannot assume you have the extra year. You need to go pull the census data for your jurisdiction right now.
That is going to catch so many people off guard. And speaking of getting caught, we have to talk about Colorado. The research material highlights Colorado's law as a kind of ghost of Christmas future for the rest of the country.
Colorado didn't wait for the feds. Their law went into effect July 1st, 2024. And unlike the federal rule, which is enforced by the DOJ, Colorado's law allows for direct civil action with specific penalties.
I saw that number. It was something like $3,500.
A $3,500 fine payable directly to the plaintiff for each violation.
Hold on, payable to the plaintiff. So if I'm a resident of a town in Colorado and I can't read a PDF on the city council agenda, I can sue and I personally get a check.
Theoretically, yes. Plus attorney's fees. It totally changes the dynamic. It moves accessibility from we might get a letter from Washington to we might face immediate financial liability from our own neighbors.
It puts a literal price tag on exclusion. So knowing the bar is set high and the clock is ticking, where do things stand? I'm looking at this survey from NSPRA, the National School Public Relations Association, and Sogalytics, and wow, it's not great.
Not great is being very polite. It's alarming. They surveyed school communications professionals, and only 14% said they were close to completing compliance work.
14%. That is a tiny fraction.
And get this, 12% haven't even started.
Wow.
The majority, about half, are in the currently implementing phase, which, you know what that means. We've realized how big the mountain is, and we're still lacing up our boots.
What really jumps out at me from the survey isn't just the readiness, but the ownership. It seems like districts are treating this like a PR problem.
That is the silo problem, and it's so dangerous. The survey showed that 82% of districts assign responsibility for this to the communications staff.
The people who run the Facebook page.
Right. And 41% assign it to IT, but only 14% involved HR, and only 6% involved teachers or curriculum.
But you just told us the law covers the HR systems and the classroom materials.
Exactly. If you dump this entirely on the communications director, you are setting them up to fail. They can fix the homepage, they can add captions to a video, they cannot rewrite the code for the payroll software, they can't remediate thousands of old PDFs.
It's like asking the painter to fix the foundation of the house.
It's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. And
the survey shows that confidence is high for websites, 73% feel okay there, but it plummets to 12% for learning management systems and 7% for HR systems. They know the back end is a mess, and they know they can't fix it alone.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room. The vendor conundrum. Schools and cities don't build their own software, they buy it. So if those tools aren't accessible, what is a local district supposed to do?
This is the hardest part. Under the law, you are liable for the tools you use, even if you didn't build them. And the survey found 74% of districts cited vendor limitations as a major barrier.
And yet, and this number floored me, 49% of districts have no formal review of vendor accessibility during contract selection. They're just signing checks and hoping for the best.
Which is basically legal suicide now. You have to change how you buy things. The National Center on Accessible Digital Educational Materials calls this the embed and add strategy.
Embed and add. Walk us through that.
Embed means you put accessibility requirements directly into the RFP in the contract, It is non-negotiable legal language. You state, if your product doesn't meet WCAG 2.1 AA, we legally cannot buy it.
That shifts the pressure back to the company.
It does. And then add means you add verification. You don't just ask, is this accessible? Because the salesperson will always say yes.
Yeah.
You have to ask for the receipts.
And the receipt in this world is that acronym, a VPAT.
Yes, but this is a trap. I cannot stress this enough. VPAT stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. But a VPAT is just the blank form.
So if a vendor sends me a VPAT, they've just sent me a blank tax return and said, look, I did my taxes.
That is the perfect way to put it. I've seen vendors do that. It means nothing. What you need is the ACR, the Accessibility Conformance Report. That is the completed VPAT.
Ah, okay. That's a crucial distinction, the filled out report.
Even then, you have to read it. In the ACR, for every criteria, they have to list supports, partially supports, or does not support. A lot of vendors live in that partially supports column.
What does partially supports even mean in the real world?
It's a risk assessment. It might mean the tool mostly works, but one obscure button is mislabeled. Maybe you can live with that. Or it might mean a blind parent literally cannot navigate the payment screen. That's a showstopper. You have to look at the remarks column. If it's vague or blank, that's a huge red flag.
The notes mention Sogalytics as a case study. Apparently, districts started demanding this stuff, and so they went and audited their own tools.
That's the power of the purse. If enough districts say no ACR, no contract, the vendors will move. But you have to be willing to walk away from a product that doesn't work.
Okay, so that covers new tech. But what about the millions of documents we already have? What about the loopholes? Can I just ignore my old stuff?
The DOJ calls them exceptions, and I'm glad you used the word loopholes because that's how people want to treat them. But they are actually traps if you aren't careful.
Ooh, okay. Why are they traps?
Well, the rule outlines 5 main exceptions: archive content, pre-existing documents, third-party content, individualized password-protected docs, and pre-existing social media.
Okay, let's take archived content. That sounds safe. I have a PDF newsletter from 2018 in an archive folder on the website. I can ignore it, right?
Generally, yes, if it's just for reference. But here's the trap. The moment you touch it, you own it. If you go back to that 2018 newsletter and just fix a typo, you have altered the document. The exception vanishes. You must now make the entire thing fully accessible.
Wow. So let sleeping dogs lie. Do not touch the archive.
Exactly. Then there's the pre-existing documents exception. But the gotcha here is the current use clause.
Give me an example.
Let's say you have a job application PDF that HR created in 2020. It's pre-existing. However, if you're still using that same PDF to hire people in 2026, it is not exempt. Why? Because it's being used for a current program.
That makes sense. You can't hide behind the creation date if it's still an active document.
Right. And then there's the third-party content exception. This is the one everyone clings to. I didn't make it. Not my problem.
Like a comment on the city's Facebook page?
Right. If a resident posts a comment, you are not responsible for that. But if you hire a marketing firm to build a website for your summer festival, that is not third-party content in the eyes of the law. They are your agent. You are on the hook.
And there's one massive rule that trumps all these exceptions, isn't there?
The request clause. This is the ultimate safety net. Even if a document is technically exempt, if a person with a disability requests access, you must provide it.
You can't just say, sorry, that's in the exempt pile.
Never. You have to provide an accessible alternative. The exceptions give you breathing room, but they do not absolve you of the duty to provide access when asked.
So we have the law, the vendor minefield, and the trap-filled exceptions. Let's pivot to the practical. What do I actually do tomorrow morning?
First, stop relying only on automated checkers. I know tools like Wave and AndyEye are popular, but the data shows they only catch about 30% of errors.
That is a terrifyingly low number. You could get a green check mark from a bot and still be totally unusable for a human.
100%. A bot can tell you if an image has alt text. It can't tell you if the alt text is just image001.jpg, which is useless. You need manual testing.
What does a manual test look like for a non-expert?
The no mouse test. It's the single best thing you can do. Unplug your mouse. Can you navigate your homepage using only the tab key? Can you fill out the Contact Us form and hit Submit? If you get stuck, your site is broken.
That feels like something anyone could do in 5 minutes.
It's humbling. You will find break-in spots immediately.
Yeah.
Secondly, document hygiene. The sources are unanimous. PDFs are the villains of digital accessibility.
Why is everyone so hard on PDFs? The entire government runs on them.
And that's the problem. A PDF is often just a digital picture of paper. Unless it's tagged properly, a screen reader just sees a blank box. The advice is simple. Stop using them. Put the information directly on the web page as text.
And it's easier to update so you don't fall into that archived content trap.
Exactly. And a final quick win, camel case hashtags on social media.
Explain that one.
It's just capitalizing the first letter of each word. So instead of hashtag back to school, you do hashtag back to school.
Does it really matter?
To a screen reader, it's a huge difference. Without caps, it tries to read it as one long word. My favorite example is hashtag Superbowl. Without caps, the screen reader often says superb owl.
Superb owl. I mean, who doesn't love a great owl? But that's a bit confusing.
It is, but it shows how exclusion happens in these tiny details.
I think the theme here is really culture over compliance. I was struck by the example from Worcester Public Schools. They seem to take a very different approach.
They did. They realized that trying to police every single document from day one would paralyze the district. So they focused on big picture practices.
Training, onboarding.
Right. They acknowledge 100% perfection isn't realistic right away, but systemic improvement is. They made accessibility part of new, higher training. They focused on building a better future, not just fixing the past.
There's a quote in the source material that I think frames this perfectly. It says, "Disability is the only minority group that anyone can join at any time."
It's a powerful reframing. Age, an accident, a temporary illness. Suddenly, you are the one who needs the screen reader.
It moves the conversation from why do we have to do this for them to we're building this for our future selves.
And if we zoom out, it's about democracy. If the town hall has stairs that block 26% of the population from entering, and that's the percentage of American adults with a disability, can you really call it a democracy?
That puts that $3,500 fine into perspective.
Precisely. And the good news is that survey shows 97% of school leaders agree this should be a shared responsibility. The will is there. The systems just need to catch up.
So, to recap for everyone listening, the deadlines are 2026 or 2027 based on your census population, not your student count. The rule covers everything. And you have to stop buying inaccessible tech by demanding ACRs, the filled-out forms.
And start testing with humans, not just bots.
And seriously, stop with the PDFs.
Please stop with the PDFs.
We have covered a lot of ground today, but before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We started with the curb cut, how a ramp for wheelchairs helped everyone. I'm thinking about the innovation side of this. Voice-to-text was invented for accessibility. Now we all use Siri. Audiobooks were for the blind. Now they're $1 billion industry for commuters. Captions were for the deaf. Now we all watch videos with the sound off.
That's the pattern. Universal design drives innovation.
So instead of seeing this as a burden, what if we asked, what is the digital curb cut of the next decade? By forcing ourselves to design services that are flexible enough for the margins, what better systems are we going to accidentally invent for everyone?
I think that's exactly the right question. The next big breakthrough in EdTech won't come from being flashy. It'll come from being accessible. When you design for inclusion, you usually end up designing the future.
Something to think about while you're auditing those vendor contracts. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Check the show notes for links to the NSPRA survey and the ADA guides. Until next time, keep asking the hard questions.